it is what it is. We just talk about whatever we talk about. So.
It sounds like a Gamers at Large podcast that takes place at an earlier time.
Yes, or a Gamers at Large podcast that I don't know has the explicit tag. You know.
You mean Gamers at Large? You mean after after air?
Yeah, Gamers at Large, business in the street, that was in the description. So it is what it is. We have a lot of discussions post podcast that are quite interesting, and some of them are probably not for how can I say this, unkept eyes and ears. But yeah, the more of this would be people that say certain things. Let me just get this out of the way first and foremost. Okay, a blog decided to post that Nintendo felt the Wii U was a secondary console. A blog did that. The blog actually had a source. Mr. T pointed it out to me. I go to look at the source, which is an article that's from an interview with Time Magazine. Nowhere in Time Magazine's website is the actual interview. There are choice quotes pulled from the interview, and then there's a bunch of jargon, which is really the editor's opinion in between all of it. Where is the actual interview? Because I have no idea, I have no context of where any of these quotes were taken from. That was the entire point that I had with Dave's Had Enough, or Dave, if you will, and his whole thing was, no, it's a website. Or it's not a blog, it's a website, it's a blog, a website, blog, a blog is this, a blog is that. And I'm like, well, a blog can be a website, a blog is a type of website. What is designated as is largely irrelevant. The whole point is, since it is a blog, which is a type of a website, it is not responsible in any way, shape, or form as to the accuracy of any of the stuff that's there. Nor is it meant to be a news outlet, if you will. It is bringing news to you, but it should always have a source. It is not the direct source. It is basically a feed that you can subscribe to that gives you information from elsewhere. So you don't have to subscribe to all of these individual places that they get their news sources from. You can just subscribe to them if you just only want My Nintendo News, if you will. So therein is the problem, because we have this broken down, how can I say this, thought process where individuals think that just because it's at a URL, that is proof and that is evidence and that is factual.
Well, now stop right there. You said it's a broken down thought process. I say it's lack thereof.
I would say it's an infernal thought process.
I mean, to me, if you can just make an assumption like that based on a single quote pulled from a single article and not do research, you're not thinking. It's just like when you see someone screaming in public, do you automatically assume they're in trouble?
Hold on. I'll take the most extreme approach of it. Never go, because I'm quoting stop from a stop sign. That's about how broken that logic is.
No, the major issue, in my opinion, isn't just all of that. It's that just because someone has a blog doesn't make them a journalist.
No,
just because someone writes an editorial in the newspaper doesn't mean that you are a journalist. Doesn't mean what you wrote is really all that relevant. Because we've seen, I mean, I'm not going to bring up any movements or activist type things, but we've seen.
I don't care.
we've seen in the last year or so a lot of shady stuff coming out from quote unquote journalists, I'm not gonna get.
I know it's hard to form words. But
no, I'm not gonna get too into it. But I mean, I have a lot of friends who work for not a lot of friends. I have 2 friends who work for actual newspapers and went to majored in journalism, and that's their trade. And one of the things you learn when you're in journalism is first to seek the truth, Secondly, to verify everything that you write, because that's your credibility. All you have in journalism is your credibility, and once that's shot, well, you wind up like that guy that they did the movie about with Hayden Christensen. I think his last name was Glass. That like he wrote all of these stories that he just pulled out of the air, and no verification. Turned out he was a fraud, and like that guy's credibility is shot. And yet we're having people using citing these people as sources, and I'm like, if I wrote a paper and I use a fraud as a source, my paper would be suspect.
Of course.
I mean, if this is my job would be suspect. So why in the world would you go up and would you expect people to take what you have to say seriously if you're using these people as your source? Well, some guy, I mean, it's like, well, I heard that President Obama is an alien from planet X. Well, who told you that? Some homeless guy off the street. But that's how you know it's true. Some homeless guy off the street. That's basically what you're saying when you say, well, I heard it from some website or Wikipedia. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's oh my God. So many people know so much about the Wii U specs because they went to Wikipedia. I'm like, okay, right. That's a good start. Yeah, thank you for letting me know who you are.
Here's my thing. And I'm not sure this requires you to do a lot of research or not, but how does anyone know what the hell it's capable of? Common sense would tell me that if you have not been able to hack this thing yet, fully, you cannot know what it's capable of.
Look, but we executed arbitrary code. It did absolutely nothing, but we executed code.
No. The only way you can learn, you can even kind of make a guess as to what the Wii U is capable of, is because right now no one's hacked it, so they can't look at the guts, they can't dissect it. So you have to go to the first standby of scientific study, observation. That's all you can really do. And observing this system, the games that are on this system, that are being done on this system when it's utilizing the hardware. I mean, I got a 1080p game running 60 frames per second, 8 people playing on it.
Yeah.
Not a dip.
Not to mention, it's doing it on 2 displays, not 1.
Yeah, and it doesn't have 8 gigs of memory either, so it doesn't use x86 architecture, so I don't know what.
And I'm sorry, it lacks DirectX 12 too.
Yeah, it doesn't. It might not have all the features that everyone says. Well, you need features, but when it comes to playing games, which is the only important measuring stick that you should really measure a console on. The games look pretty damn next gen. Well, actually, I hate when people say that. We're in the current gen. They look current gen to me.
I just have a problem when people talk about features that are supposedly next gen because they heard it in some developer interview and they mentioned the buzzword.
Yeah, 1080p, 60 frames per second.
Oh, they're like, well, Wii U lacks things like tessellation. I'm like, sorry, the GameCube had tessellation. So you're gonna tell me the Wii U doesn't? And obviously we know it does, but this is one of those geniuses out there that use Wikipedia as a source for the Wii U's hardware specifications. So we already know what we're dealing with here. But when you mention things like that, and then you try to do the other stupid thing of let's directly compare a rumored specification of a AMD graphics card in the 4000 series. Not only that, the desktop part, because clearly a desktop part and the embedded part are made exactly the same. Right. So we have both of those flaws going. Then we're comparing that to a PC that you built, which is in no way custom or modified towards gaming at all. Yeah, and because those specs either meet or exceed that, and therefore that means that Nintendo's hardware is, how can I say this, behind the times.
Okay, even just using critical thinking, because look, I'm not a hardware guy. I just look at I just observe. Nintendo has been using PowerPC architecture since the GameCube. They've pumped at least millions, maybe even let's just say a billion. Just a billion in terms of if you put in the time, man hours, resources, all that type of stuff. $1 billion into this architecture. They've refined it to the point where it's capable of doing things that no one ever thought before. And even if the technology itself may be quote unquote withered, they've shown time and time again in past that when you give Nintendo some old tech that other people are like, that's not top of the line. That's old stuff. They'll do some stuff with it that you'll be like, I can't believe they did that with that old stuff. So, I mean,
this is what we call the big O. It's called optimization, right?
Yeah.
So you have some really, really old arcane hardware, if you will. Like you can write code for an ATM machine that could possibly outperform some code on a new processor right now, simply because there are old subroutines and old pieces of logic in those systems that string instructions along much faster than they would running through SRAM and doing it generally in a new processor today. There's custom hardware on that old shit that just makes it work faster. And if you know that, then you're able to get better performance.
But you know what, though? Here's an even more... Let me just give a dumbass example, something that anyone can understand. I love cars. Now, a lot of people don't know this. Everyone knows about the Bugatti Veyron, how it's the world's fastest car. But do you really? But people don't realize that it got stripped from that title twice. And this car has a 16-cylinder engine, very unique setup, very unique 7-speed gearbox, has a 1,000 horsepower, 4 turbos. All this helps make this car hit that high-ass speed. But do you know that Shelby put they took an 8-cylinder motor out of a Corvette, put 2 big-ass turbochargers on it, and made a 1,200 horsepower car that outran the Veyron?
I believe it.
It's called tried and true technology. Instead of trying to make something so unique, they said, let's take a 500 horsepower motor and just jack this bitch all the way up to street legal, to where it's barely street legal, and it beat it. And another prime example is a Nissan GTR. That is a small 3.8 liter V6 turbocharged.
High torque.
They go 0 to 60 faster, just as fast as a Veyron. It's like 2 milliseconds slower. And then on top of that, it actually beats the Veyron around a track. We're talking about a $100,000 car versus a $2 million car.
I was just about to say, which one is significantly cheaper?
And you can say the Veyron is a faster car, but how many straightaways in the world will allow you to hit 250 plus miles an hour? But I bet you there's a quarter mile every time you look around.
Mm-hmm.
And the Veyron will have his ass whooped every time by a 100K car. So it's not about power. It's about how you optimize it.
Yep.
And with the GTR, it's a prime example. Unlike most cars, the transmission sits at the back of the car, not with the engine. They're totally separate. It's an all-wheel drive system that has no equal. That car has a perfect 50-50 weight distribution on all 4 tires. They optimized the shit out of that car. And they made it to where you can even upgrade the engine over time without changing out parts. So to me, the Wii U is a GTR. It doesn't look like it, and you won't hear a roar and all this loud noise coming from it. But once that light turns green, you'll be wondering what the hell is that.
You know, I've heard a lot of people mention this, like before and during this, when this generation started in 2012. That's what Wii U would end up being. It would end up being the GameCube of this generation, and you know, that being that. All things being said, software is going to define what that machine is capable of versus, you know, raw numbers on a spec sheet that don't exist anyway because Nintendo won't divulge them. They haven't done this since GameCube, actually. And even then, they didn't really go into finer details that they probably could have with regards to how Gecko operated and things like that. But they tend to not see that as the focus now, even though, you know, they probably could go into detail and probably decimate a lot of haters with regards to their programming logic and things like that if they wanted to break things down, because they could start talking about bandwidth and stuff like that, things they know they have the edge in, and that could be one of the things that they could brag about with regards to specs. But they choose not to because they would rather just, you know, hey, we got to get games out. We're not waiting on these guys. We're not trying to show them anything because we're just trying to get our system out. we know they're probably going to throw one out of there as soon as we do, so let's just focus on that first. And that's kind of what they tried to do. Obviously, they tried to create lightning in the bottle again with the Wii U, like, I guess to mimic the Wii. But that was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of deal, kind of like how the PS2 was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of deal. Like, there's PS3 is not going to replicate PS2. The Wii probably isn't even going to catch the PS2 at this point. So, that's just one of those things where it's just you have the extreme success. And Nintendo was lucky enough to have it with 2 platforms. There's no other platform in the history of the industry that has sold 20 million hardware units in a single year. But both the DS and the Wii have done it. So then we go to individuals that are smart enough to say, well, Nintendo's profits are dropping. Okay, they went from selling over 200 million units in the console generation to selling 9. Profits are going to increase? How, if you don't even have the mass number of units to even make a profit off of? Unless the Wii U is how can I say this, 50% more profitable per sale than the Wii was, you're not even getting close to that. That doesn't make sense mathematically, no matter how you spend it.
Now,
expectation to have.
Now, come on, Shadow, come on. We all know a certain analyst in this quote-unquote analyst in this industry said that, Nintendo has this archaic idea that they should make a profit off of their hardware.
And they do, because if they didn't, Wii U would have them failing right now.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, okay, at the worst, what you want to do when you're selling a console is have it break even, because as you sell it, just how economics and manufacturing works, it's going to get cheaper to manufacture as time goes on, because you're going to figure out ways to make the manufacturing process more efficient. You're going to take out stuff that doesn't need to be added. You're going to figure out how to parts are going to get cheaper because the technology is going to get older, that type of thing. But, I mean, no one in their right mind sells a console at a loss, at a loss, hoping that because basically you're digging yourself in a hole as you sell your product. And that's a bad way to go.
But you're betting on advertising to bail you out, and you're betting on, how can I say this, your brand to bail you out, even though it hasn't worked for Sony in the last 8 years. So now we have a very successful console, but now the electronics that you use to bail out the PlayStation 3 is no longer there to bail out the PlayStation 4. So now the PlayStation 4 is bailing out the rest of Sony proper at this point.
But see, even that's not smart to me, because you mentioned the advertising part, but advertising is not cheap.
No, it isn't.
The only reason I think Sony can get away with a lot of advertising because, in a sense, they have their own advertising firm, to say the least. They own movie companies and things like that, so they can basically advertise all their own products within movies. They own stuff like Columbia Pictures and things like that. So it makes sense, but even still, advertising doesn't cost a couple of $1 million. It costs tens of millions of dollars.
Exactly.
So if your console is only breaking even, you barely have any first-party titles in which you can control how much you spend. You can control the entire budget from beginning to end. You're primarily living and surviving by way of third party, which they set the prices, and you have to abide by that. And then you have to advertise for it, pay for that, and on top of that, you're even scrambling to get exclusive advertising rights, which I'm pretty sure costs more. Hello, Destiny. Anyway.
Let's put it this way. What was the highest selling third-party game on PlayStation and Xbox last generation?
Grand Theft Auto.
I'm willing to bet it was Grand Theft Auto. If it wasn't Grand Theft Auto, it was probably Call of Duty.
No, if you talking about franchise total, Call of Duty. You talking about one single game, Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, I'm thinking between the two of those games, they single-handedly funded the Xbox One and the Xbox 360, because that's the only money that they were really getting in terms of profit from both of those pieces of hardware. Because both of those pieces of hardware, allegedly, from former employees at both of those hardware distributors, lost a total of $8 billion last generation.
God damn!
Yeah, and people don't know this, but the PS3 people want to brag, say, well, now the PS3 is profitable. The PS3
No, it's
saw
not.
it saw its first profit in the middle of 2012.
And
does that profit cover 8 billion?
And let's be frank, okay? If you trust Sony's numbers when it comes to how much they sold, how much money they made, I have got a mountain of gold to sell you in China.
I'm sorry, but even the PS3 lost $1 billion in the first 9 months on the market. $1 billion.
And like the amount, like okay, the let's say the PS3 is what? Let's give it a nice round number. It's at 25 million right now. The PS4. Let's just say, okay. They've made last fiscal year with the PS4 250 million, selling like 20 million units.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, don't you think that seems a little odd when you've got something like the Wii U, which is in dead last, and they made 200 million. The PS4 made 200 million. Nintendo made off of the Wii U and the 3DS, because let's be frank, the 3DS is a juggernaut in a clamshell design. 250 million.
Oh yeah.
That's.
But their profits are dwindling because they aren't making the 700 million in operating profits that they were making with the Wii and the DS in their heyday, selling 20 million consoles in a single year.
Yeah.
But by the way, the PlayStation 4 is the fastest selling piece of hardware ever. Somebody tell me how its lifetime sales got outsold in a year, but it's the fastest selling hardware ever.
Yeah,
Even Rachel Hollis debunked that whole thing. He said even the Wii itself sold like 3 to 4 million units in just the month of December.
Yeah, he said.
Well, there's that Sony bullshit. It
sold 9 million in December of 2009. That same year, it sold 25 million units. That entire calendar year.
Yep.
It was a juggernaut. That is like nobody can come to that anymore. That was lightning in a bottle. It's not gonna come back. That was that was casuals and everybody that was into the how can I say this, the motion gaming movement. Just post iPhone was getting into the swing of things, and everybody had a Wii in their house. So there was that's not gonna happen again. There's not a whole bunch of people like.
No, and it's not
every
gonna
house
happen.
has a PlayStation 4. Every house has an Xbox. Yeah. That's not happening.
And here's the thing people need to understand, okay? Not only were they selling a lot of Wiis, the Wii was essentially a slightly souped-up GameCube.
In a sense, yes.
They basically had like a warehouse. Oh, we got some GameCubes. We got to do something with them. Okay, I tell you what, we'll take them back to the factory. We'll tinker with them a little bit, add motion control, put it in a different box. Boom! Wait.
Yeah, they definitely fiddled with design quite a bit. I would say that it's downright a miracle how that system was engineered, because it was like a mix of, we're going to add functionality here basically to make this thing overkill in 480p. But at the same point in time, we're going to add all these connectivity features that were absent from the GameCube that aren't even present in the Xbox yet. So they started adding all this Wi-Fi and this Bluetooth and all this other kind of stuff, adding channels, downloadable content in the background that, even the PS3 didn't get it right initially. And, and I think the original 360 still doesn't do it. I think the new 360 does it. It goes in standby mode. But the original 360 never did it. So Wii was ahead of its time doing this kind of stuff. It was the first system announced with that kind of stuff. The PlayStation 3 kind of came after that during E3, talking about it would have that kind of stuff towards launch. Even though the PlayStation 3 launched first. It's just kind of interesting to me how it can be considered such lower hardware, yet having all these newer hardware benefits that people tend to ignore. And it's not
the cool thing anymore. Like, Nintendo hasn't been cool.
Yeah.
Truly, like the cool system to have
Not since Super Nintendo.
basically since the Super Nintendo. The N64 was a cool system, but it wasn't compared to the PlayStation. Like even just look at the name. Like
Nintendo 64 wasn't a
PlayStation,
high school system. It was a college system. It was a dorm system, and nobody really kind of talked about it. They just kind of played it every night when they got drunk, and they didn't really talk about it. They talked about PlayStation during the day, but then they played GoldenEye at night, if you will. It was kind of like that.
So they were down low on the N64. That's what you're saying.
I pretty much can confirm that through my entire college career, yeah, for the most part.
It's
That
like
was,
they're too.
anecdotally, but yeah.
So the N64 was the fat chick you came to see at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, pretty much.
come on, man, damn. We did not have to go there.
Way more fun.
To all
You see you with your homeboys.
to all the plus size women out there, please send comments and emails to Red Fox here.
It's the ShadowCast, man. Anything goes. It's okay. I put it this way: all plus size females know who they are. They know they're beautiful. So keep your spirits about. And trust me, we will dog skinny women too. It's okay. We'll just dog women, period, and men, period. Because apparently all of us are objects anyway. You know, according to certain women with a slight Spanish name, but a weird last name that isn't Spanish. So yeah, we'll continue to discuss things as if they were real issues, and I should feel offended that you guys talked about that because I am a large woman even though I claim to be a man. So now I'm offended. So now all of you guys should be banned. And all you guys should stop attacking me on Twitter, even though I created Twitter accounts to pretend that you're attacking me. And by the way, I have I don't know, another 16 videos to do that I got paid over $500,000 to do. $30,000 episode, guys. There, I did it. Gamergate. We're done. We're not talking about that no more. Next topic. Anyways, so here's the thing, right? So I go to insert whatever place here or whatever, right? I go there and, you know, people are talking about video games or what have you, and people were talking about individual games and things like that. And it's like people are embarrassed to even mention a certain console. Like it's like socially unacceptable to mention that you would play a game on Nintendo hardware in 2015 and beyond. So I was having a discussion with some individuals, and they were, I'll put it this way, about 3 years ago, I had this same conversation with these individuals in public, and they were talking about a wonderful game that didn't get a lot of sales or whatever, but they were playing it over and over again because they could not believe that while you were fighting, this girl gradually became naked. So so several years later, we're having this same conversation, and I started talking about the second game in the series, and the conversation went completely quiet. And I'm like, so y'all haven't played that game? Y'all remember y'all had a lot of fun playing the first one? It was awesome, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, so what's good with none of you guys have played Bayonetta 2? They're like, no. I'm like, well, so y'all don't want to find out what happens to Cereza? And they're like, nah, I haven't had time. I said, but you have a Wii U because you bought your son one. So you say, it's always you bought it for your kid, right? So you bought your son one. You didn't buy the game. For what reason? I mean, because if you don't have the old platform anymore, you can play both games. I mean, you have the definitive version of the first game. Yeah, I mean, clearly the best performing version of the first game. And you have the second game, which for some reason it has VSync. So, you know, what's the issue? There's really no, you know, man, I don't know, man. I've been playing, you know, Call of Duty or whatever. I'm like, so But you stop playing Call of Duty on the same platform to play Bayonetta on the PlayStation 3, which was clearly the worst version of that game. But you have a problem playing the game on the Wii U that you have that you could play in any room of your house because you actually have thin walls in your house. It just bewilders me. Like, you have the platform. Why haven't you bought the game? You want to relegate that system to literally only being a Mario Party device?
It's called the excuse game. It's called the excuse game, and somehow, like, they either come up with excuses. Just look. We've had this talk on other podcasts. Nintendo can't win. Ever.
Yeah, that's the way it works. That's the way it works. Not to be rude, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce everybody right now, since we kind of have like a more permanent party going right now. So this ShadowCast 18, we're here. We're talking whatever. This is loosely more of basically a gamers at large with free roaming creativity and language. I would imagine. But I have with me Dr. Feelgood. Tell the Two Foxes, Mr. Red Fox, and the other ninja apparently, and that's Andre Letters, as Manchu would call it.
Out of everybody in the gamers at large, me and you the only two that ever surprise pop up on people.
Oh man, I've done. Now I think about it, yeah, I've done some like 2 hours in, like, hey, here I am. How's it going?
My latest ninja appearance was at the end of Micah's Zelda talk.
Awesome. Yeah, I've done some. Now I think about it, I try not to do that, but sometimes I get caught in the crosswinds and
can't be helped.
Yeah, I can't be helped. So ninjaing I go. So yeah, so that was the majority of that topic I want to talk about. That was more just like what is the mind state of these people, and what are they thinking? Like, why are people still thinking that NX means the Wii U is over when Iwata only mentioned NX to explicitly explain that they're not leaving the console business, period?
Oh, God.
So here's my thought process behind that. Here's my thought process behind that. Seriously. Nintendo came out months ago and said that, just to let you guys know, we are working on our next console, but to anyone that's been gaming for more than 2 generations should know that they always do this. They always do this. Nintendo was working on the Wii U when the Wii released.
Yeah.
The concept of the Wii U was there even before the Wii even released, just before.
Before they even knew what the hardware was going to be.
So this time it's like, okay, so someone publicly came out finally. That rarely does happen, and say, hey, just let you guys know, this is not our last console. We're working on another one right now.
Yeah,
they were basically letting all the gamers know that, hey, if you guys thought we were leaving the console market, you're out of your mind. We're still here. Nothing's going to change. But then from there, to automatically assume that this is the dumbest shit ever.
Oh, God, Jesus.
To assume that it is another console. The word platform has a very, very widespread meaning. It really does.
Meaning, if you will.
Like, to me,
wasn't the actual term like dedicated game hardware?
Dedicated gaming hardware.
What? Like, check this out. People don't know this. Like I said, I love dealing with cars. Do you know that, like, when a car's frame is called a platform?
Of course.
Like, the framework of a car is called a platform. Like, for example, the Nissan Altima is called a D platform. This is the same platform that the Infiniti Q series and G series is based on. So Nissan says we have a new platform, that's basically said we have a new framework of a vehicle that we're about to build. It doesn't mean it's a brand new car. It's just a different way, a better way, potentially, that we're going to make the car. That's it. That's all it is. So in this case, to me, platform means, that can mean a multitude of things. It can mean that, hey, this may tie into the new rewards program. This may tie into maybe the whole infrastructure with this whole DNA thing, that, hey, it may be a whole different platform. Instead of it being Nintendo Network, it may be something else.
It could be Virtual Console Cloud.
Exactly, but that's what platform means. I guess now people think like, well, the Xbox is a platform. It's a fucking
Here's the
console.
best here's the best way to put this into perspective. Steam is a platform. It is not hardware.
Exactly.
A
But
It's a
platform is a
platform playing
concept.
games. Yes.
I
And
will. Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. All I was gonna say it was an idea. You can go.
Well, I'm not going to do any speculation because trying to speculate on what Nintendo is going to do is, it's harder than trying to guess what the stock market's going to do.
But that's what makes it so fun.
I know that's what makes it so fun, but I've been hearing a lot of people like the NX is going to be it's going to be the Fusion. It's going to be this. It's going to be that.
Oh, did
I'm
you
like,
hear
okay.
that one? You hear that one about the person that didn't pay no attention whatsoever and said it's going to be a controller for mobile.
Yeah.
You're a dumbass.
Here's all I'm going to say, okay? I'm not going to go on baseless speculation. I'm going to go on what Nintendo's pattern is since the NES, okay? 3 years into the NES, they drop the Game Boy, right? The Famicom, it was 3 years into the Famicom Game Boy. 3 years into the NES here in America, the Game Boy. 3 years into the SNES, 4 years, the Game Boy Color. 3 years into the N64, Game Boy Advance. 3 years into the GameCube,
BS.
DS. 3 years into the Wii. 3DS.
Yes. Yep.
We're getting 3 years into the Wii U.
But you know what to add to that? Let me just say that for all you people out there, that when we talk shit about you, and like I said, I'm not a fanboy. I'm not attacking anyone directly, but I will say this: to all those folks out there that can be easily, you fall for the hype that Sony and Microsoft build up to the tune of 20 plus million consoles sold with virtually no games available. I know about Bloodborne. 1886 don't count. That's a movie. Moving on. If you can easily be hyped up by that, then guess what? Nintendo just showed us. They just showed us that they can be just as much about hype as anyone else. They came out with a press conference. They mentioned a name, said the word platform, and guess what happened? Stocks rose up, and people went to go reserve a fucking concept.
A concept that has no mention of what the hell it's supposed to be.
So let me get this straight. If I go to I got an idea. We're going to reserve that for people. We're going to let them reserve that. And people actually went out to reserve it. That
So
is
pretty
hype.
damn
That hype right there, I'm sorry. Sony has not gotten that high yet.
I'm sorry, them people gonna feel very stupid if it turns out to be an online service because I doubt GameStop or anybody else is gonna be able to sell it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if you think about the amount of hype, this hype actually did something that the PS4 wasn't doing. You say something that gets people riled up, both investors, potential investors, gamers, even people that don't like you are all of a sudden now like, wow, like this is amazing. Nintendo just made the whole industry turn their head once again, and all Nintendo said is, "We got an idea coming up. Stay tuned."
Well, it's like I told someone I was in my own podcast. I said, look, Nintendo, despite all the things people may say about Nintendo, they're the leaders of the industry. Because who's going to take their place? Sony, Microsoft. Sorry, I tried to say it with a straight face. I couldn't do it.
I'm sorry, but to me, if you can come out and just mention a few things, and all of a sudden you got more money rolling in your pockets, it's like that's like taking your own piss, and selling it to somebody.
Now, that's like Iwata having a press conference. He says one word, cheese, walks off.
That would draw a lot of attention just because it would be so damn weird.
So I got a question in the comments. Like I said, they didn't put it in the questions. The River Anduin says, if Nintendo were the beast of a console for the NX, do you think third parties will flop back to Nintendo?
Nope.
I don't think so.
I'm going to be just like the grumpy cat.
Games are selling Nintendo. So.
No. I would say this. To all those gamers out there that think that, oh, well, if they had more power, third parties would want to work with them, it's not about power. Nintendo tried to make up with third parties with the GameCube.
Yep.
They tried this. The GameCube was actually more powerful than any other console of that generation. Far more powerful. Even with using a smaller medium. I mean, it really was. The problem is that people do not want to work with Nintendo, period. People are still scarred, but they also realize this. For them to have the best first party, the most powerful hardware, and third party support, they will have absolutely no control over what they get paid.
Yep.
Because
And
you
look,
think about Nintendo back in the day, they controlled how much they pay people because these third parties had to pay to develop their own game.
Yep.
They had to also pay for the production. They had to also pay Nintendo for the cartridges. They couldn't make their own cartridges. They had to buy them from Nintendo, so they assumed 100% of the risk.
let me put it this way, okay? Let's just put it simply like this, okay? You have you have the big three, okay? Two members basically bend over backwards to kiss third parties' asses. I know that's anatomically impossible, but they find a way to do it. Then you have one that's like, no, I refuse to capitulate to these demands, okay? And like you have two that have first-party games that range from pretty good to mediocre, but a very small portion of first-party games. And you have one that has really, really good first-party games and some decent third-party exclusives. Okay, if Nintendo had like full actual support from third parties, combined with their awesome first parties, combined with their awesome exclusives, like third-party and second-party games, there would be no reason to own another console.
Exactly.
And third parties don't want that. Third parties would rather slit their throats, light themselves on fire, and be shot with an anti-tank gun at the same time.
Here's the reality of the scenario. You have a bunch of individuals that love to complain about Nintendo not having great third-party relations compared to the other two platforms and even PC, right? So here's the thing. Nobody's ever created the doomsday scenario for them. What happens if Xbox doesn't have third party? What happens if PlayStation doesn't have third party? What happens if PC doesn't have third party? What first party game for PC are you buying? What first party game for Xbox is going to drive the entire console? This is post Halo 1, by the way. Halo actually drove the first Xbox for a large majority of the time.
Halo is the only first-party IP that they could drop that could push
Halo combined with Xbox Live is the only reason Xbox is still around.
Yep.
Sony first-party IP can do that. The last
Uncharted?
The last Sony first-party IP that did that was Gran Turismo.
Oh,
that's it.
And that was Gran Turismo 3.
I actually own the first four still.
That was Gran Turismo 3. That was the last one that legitimately carried Sony for about a year and a half with regards to, how can I say this, direct profits from a first-party game. If the PlayStation 3 was a flop, it still wouldn't be a flop because they would have made profits off of that game. What series of games would keep them afloat if they were in the same situation Nintendo is now with both the 3DS and the Wii U?
But see,
and to a certain extent, Wii.
It's common sense. These other two consoles are completely dependent on third party. They could not survive on their own.
Yep.
Nintendo has always been. I mean, people, it's common sense. Like, for example, when I'm a guy, and if I can only buy food from a fast food restaurant or any restaurant, that means I'm not relying on my own wit to live. But when y'all got a job, got a house, got a car, and I can manage that all on my own without help, I'm much more likely to survive any shit that comes up because I learn how to take care of myself without any help. But if you're going to take care of yourself when you have people around you supporting you, that means when they choose to leave you or stop supporting you, your system is dead. Nintendo, if every third party gave them the big finger, Nintendo can still say, Well,
Nintendo
shit, we
just make
got
more money.
tons of titles. It's like, well, hey, thank you. That means we don't have to waste time trying to cater to you anymore, which they don't anyway. But it will be just pure profit from that point. I mean, nothing but profit. Nintendo has enough IPs, enough franchises, and enough games.
And they have game development down to a science for their own hardware, so they can develop games, for a fraction of the price that a third party would have to.
And if there was anything that brought down the Wii U, okay, it wasn't the hardware. It wasn't, they didn't, you hear this BS from certain third parties.
It's marketing.
They didn't consult us. Well, it's not even really the marketing. It was them trying to lean on third parties.
Yeah, they gave them a year.
They gave them a year. They said, look, it's going to take us some time. It's going to take us some time to get things rolling in our own production house, because this is when Nintendo was still getting that new mega combined studio that they built in Kyoto together and everything. It's going to take us a while to get our house in order. We're going to count on you guys to put out some quality games until we can get on a roll. And third parties put out shit. I mean, there's no other. Generally speaking.
To me, that was Nintendo's second test. Just like the GameCube, they said, okay, here's the hardware, build from. We gave you what you wanted. We gave you the most powerful hardware to work with. They still didn't do it. This is Nintendo's second time saying, okay, hey, look, once again, we're giving you something that you can work with, easy to program for, has features that other ones don't have, and it's actually quite powerful. You take the time and sit down and try instead of just trying to port over code, overnight. And then they still gave even shittier ports than they gave on the Wii. So Nintendo said, okay, forget it. We're going to start doing shit our own. We're going to contract other people that only work with us, and we're going to just say goodbye to third parties, period. And that's what they've been doing for the last 2 years.
Yep.
So I got a comment from King Grimpachi. Like I invited him to the hangout like 2 or 3 times, but for whatever reason he's not popping up. So he says, and I quote, I don't want to misrepresent it. He says, I haven't seen anything from Wii U showing me the power of the system. I guess that depends on exactly what he means by power. And he has to be very specific about that, because I can say that about every platform.
Well, my thing is this. If power to you is graphical fidelity, then there's a game for that. If power to you is versatility, or maybe using the gamepad in many ways, there are games for that. If power to you is frames per second, there are plenty of games for that. If you're looking for all three, only one system has all three of those in a lot of games, and for the most part, that is the Wii U.
So here's the thing that I don't understand, because when you talk about power, the first thing I'm going to think about the power supply unit, which is the PSU, and I'm going to be like, why would you expect the Wii U, which is designed to be the
economical system,
the energy compliant device, to have more power? Like it's designed to operate around 22 watts the whole time,
which is lower than the Wii, by the way.
But that's being really, really, really.
Oh God.
So if I would imagine you want to talk about graphical fidelity, because nobody wants to talk about actual CPU throughput and ins and out and operands and things like that, and how much number crunching, be it numerical, floating, or anything like that, that's actually possible. Nobody wants to talk about that. It's kind of boring, right? So if you want to talk about graphics, which largely depend on the developer and the artist and the art assets and the texture assets and how they're generated and how they're put on the disc and how they're streamed from memory, like what exactly are you talking about? Are you talking about all of them together? Are you talking about the geometry? And if so, what kind of details? Are you talking about polygonal models? And if you're talking about that, what kind of details? What type of mesh? What are they using? Polygons, NURBS, what? If you're talking about details, are you talking about shadows? And if you're talking about shadows, how about self-shadowing? How about deferred shadowing? How about dynamic range lighting? How about global illumination? What exactly are you talking about? Are you talking about all of this together? Because I haven't seen all of that together on any Xbox One or Xbox or PlayStation 4 game. They usually cherry pick one of those effects and put it in a list of things that they say looks impressive. If you're talking about how can I say this, texture work, if you're talking about that, some of the largest texture sets are in Nintendo games. If you're talking about the raw polygonal throughput in a game, like we still haven't seen the 500 million polygons per second on the Xbox 360. We're still dealing with anywhere between 8 to 20,000 polygons per character in a game. This is something that we've been doing since the GameCube. We're just throwing a lot of effects on top of it. So if you're talking about raw polygon throughput, at what expense? Because none of the games are really increasing on the polygon count per se. They're kind of staying the same and throwing more effects on them. So what exactly do you mean by detail? What exactly do you mean by power? What exactly do you mean by the image that's displayed on screen per frame? And if you're going to talk about that, what else is being done that's quote-unquote drawing power? Are we doing VSync to where every frame isn't fucking torn all to hell? Are we doing this at 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second? And if we're doing it, is it adaptive? I'm sorry, am I talking way too much?
No. I was just going to add to it, like, that right there, what gets to me is people say we haven't seen examples of power, but do they even know what power means? Like, to me,
going over the
what people need to say to specify what they mean is, I haven't seen any games that display what I think a game should be using or running at today. Like, for example, like if you say something like, oh, graphical fidelity, they say I'm looking for games with high-end realistic graphics. Okay, Bayonetta has great graphics. There are a few other games out there on the Wii U that have great graphics. But then if you meet that as far as power in their argument, the next thing they're going to say is, well, I want games to be running at 1080p, 60 frames per second. They jump around. It's like, well, the Wii U has more of those games than the Xbox 361 and PS4 combined. And it's like, well, I'm looking for games that give me realism, that's mature rated. It's like, okay, so you keep jumping the gun on what is important to you in gaming every time I give you examples of what you're looking for. So what they're looking for really is
an excuse.
It's shit. What they're looking for is an excuse to hate a system for no apparent reason at all. It's like saying, I don't like this dude because he ain't me. What the fuck? Like, I mean, come on.
Look,
that's basically what it boils down to. If you say, I haven't seen anything in the system yet that shows me that it's powerful, what games are you playing on your system right now that basically you know for 100% fact, not from some bullshit article, not some lame excuse that was twisted by the reviewer from give me 100 run on the Wii U.
Look, all I'm going to say is this. Here are two examples of power on the Wii U. And this is just graphical. I'm just going to use graphics since people are always saying, show me how it's powerful. These are just normal observation. Okay. Mario Kart 8 is 59 frames per second. No, I'm joking. It's 720p upscaled to 1080p, 60 frames per second. You know, single player, just, you know, or like 1-2 players. As you get more, it goes down to 30, but I mean that's still pretty good. But if you're playing it by yourself, it's basically streaming what's happening on your TV screen to your gamepad.
And it's rendered by the GPU, which means it's doing twice the work.
But here's the kicker though. If you drive on those tracks and you see the crowd doing stuff, like actual characters doing stuff like on the tracks.
Unlike on Forza 5, where
yeah.
you still use a crowd from Sega Rally.
Go play Forza. It's the characters up close look like, hey, how's it going? The people behind them are friggin' cut characters pasted up with a prop behind them holding them up. Okay?
And they don't even move.
And they don't move, okay? Now, that's the first one. The second one is a lot of people, you know, the second level of power on this system is you look at Smash Brothers. Like I said, 8 characters playing a game. The levels look gorgeous. 1080p, 60 frames per second, streaming to a gamepad and your TV screen. No dips, no slows downs. So that's bad. That's bad.
We got to hear right now. So
wait,
basic math.
Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Wait, don't kill me. Don't kill me. Hold on. I'm gonna explain my question. Wait a minute. I'm gonna explain it. All right, hold on. Basically, what I'm saying is I just haven't seen anything on the Wii U, and you're right, on any of the consoles. It's not just the Wii U. We're talking about Nintendo right now. I haven't seen anything on any of these consoles that's really showing me something. You know, it's not showing off the system yet. I haven't seen anything on any platform do that.
So our question is this: what would show you?
I don't know. That's why they make games and I don't.
Well,
so we're talking about intangibles.
If I could if you'd allow me a second, just to point something out,
One.
because
Thumbs
thanks to Mr. Red Fox giving the example of Smash Brothers, 1080p 60 frames per second, correct? On the screen, on the main screen, which is also 480p 60 frames per second on the gamepad.
Yep.
Yes.
So, I'm just breaking this down to simple math. Give me a moment to go through all this. It's going to take some time.
I can give you the math.
I know. I just did it myself. That's what I'm saying. Just give me a second to go through all this. Okay. 1080p 60 frames per second. 1080p on screen by itself is, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Shadow, 2,073,600 pixels, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if you're multiplying that by 60 per frame, that is 124,416,000 pixels. Is that correct?
Display per second. But per
Yes.
frame, you want to count the 2 million or so you're talking about.
I know, but I'm just saying, that's still correct, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the gamepad screen displaying the same image downscaled to 480p, which is, if I remember correctly, 854 by 480.
It's 720 by. Is it? I thought it was 720 by 480.
853 by 480.
It's
409,440 pixels per frame.
Okay, yeah. So I was off just slightly. That's a little bit over 24 point. That's close to 24.6 million frames. I'm not even gonna give the exact number. If you were to do that by 60. So we're adding that 24.6 million to the 24.4 million. That's almost 150 million pixels
Per second. Yes.
in that per second frame. This is the only console among the three that has been able to achieve this, even once.
But guess what? It's not even once. It basically does what every game except Tropical Freeze.
Yeah, Tropical Freeze is the only game that actively shuts it down. Like it's not displaying anything the entire time, so the GPU is rendering everything that's on the TV. The question is it still internally rendering something and just not showing the pixels? I mean, we don't know that because the Wii U was developed a certain type of way. So, but I guess when it comes to like technical things, like we are looking, I guess, as the jaded gamer, if you will, the next whiz bang feature that looks good. So we could have a whiz bang feature that makes the game actually developed easier on the developer side. We don't care about that. All we care about is what's going to look good for us, because that looks good even if it brings the frames to 10.
I'll correct you there. What looks good? I'll correct you there. What looks good on the surface?
Yes, after everything's rastered, basically.
Well, I have something to add to that. I mean, King did mention that he hasn't seen anything on any console, which I agree. You know, to an extent for the other two consoles, that he hasn't seen anything that really just shows the console's power. But if you don't know what that will look like, then you can't really make that type of statement. That's like saying, man, I haven't tasted, any meal that really just sparks my interest. But you don't know what that is until you try meals, and then as you try them, you say, oh, I like this or I hate that. So basically, you can't say I haven't seen anything that shows me the power when basically you're not sure what that would look like.
No, but what you just said was true. You said with food you have to try the meal, right? Well, I mean, I've seen stuff on the Wii U, PS4, Xbox One. I haven't seen nothing yet. So that meal may be out there. It's a difference between someone that's saying I haven't found anything I like to eat, but you ain't eating nothing, compared to someone trying to look for something that can't find it.
I mean, but at the same time, if you think about that statement though, like you haven't seen anything, let me ask you this question in comparison. This is not me trolling out. This is a fair question. I want all you guys to answer. Compared to their predecessors, which system has made the biggest leap and can do things the predecessor cannot do?
You mean from the past system?
Oh, from the predecessor, which one made the biggest leap, and which one is actually doing things and letting you play games in a far better way with far more shit going on?
Wait! Don't say better, because that's subjective.
I mean, that's subjective.
Which one is doing more than their predecessor? Is that a better question? Is that way of putting it?
I would say none of them. They all about. None of them really.
So, like in my opinion, looking at Infamous on the PS3 and Infamous on the PS4, like there is no really big difference there. There really isn't.
To me, there is because there's less content.
Exactly.
There's
like literally, this is
there's
what's
increased
happening.
fidelity, but at what cost?
This is what's happening in today's modern gaming atmosphere. We're getting installments in games. Either the content is not there or it's locked behind a paywall. Things you would have unlocked, like Goro, in times past, you would have just unlocked the character by beating the game or putting in a code. They're like, no, we want $5 in a pre-order, or you could only get it in a special premium edition that's like $5.
But you say that about a bunch of stuff. Back in the day, I'm pretty sure you could have unlocked them amiibo outfits with Smash Brothers.
Probably.
I think there's still a way to do that though in the game. Some of them, like in the Mario Party thing, like if you put an amiibo on there that isn't a Mario Party amiibo, it still lets you roll dice to get anything. Or you can unlock it later just by playing through the game. So I guess it depends. I guess it's a game by game basis, but I get what you're saying. I see where you're going with that, but it is kind of like DLC in a way.
I will agree with King on one thing though. I will agree with King on something that I also agree. Where Ken said he agrees with in terms of the side of the PS4 and the Xbox One. I have to be honest. I kind of agree with it on the Wii U side as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. What's been shown on the Wii U so far looks good, but I personally don't think that even the Wii U, apart from what has been shown, apart from what we've seen on Zelda Wii U, I don't think we've really seen like what the Wii U is capable of potentially doing graphically. I mean, as good as Mario Kart 8 does look, it's really hard to if you're not looking at it with the right eye, like the kind of eye any of us would probably look at it with, then even from that perspective, other than Zelda, other than what we've seen of Zelda Wii U so far, I still think there is a shit ton more the Wii U can do graphically, even as well as in thingy behind the scenes and on the surface.
My problem with Wii U is we're not gonna ever know what that's capable of for the same reasons we never saw what Wii was capable of, with the exception of Xenoblade, and that's because Factor 5 isn't there. They were the only people that understood that stuff inside and out, and they basically designed Wii U the way that they designed Wii and GameCube in a more giant fashion, if you will.
I do think that we'll see. I don't think, well, with any of these consoles, I don't think we're going to see them pushed. We're probably not going to see any of them pushed beyond, say, 50-60%, 70 at the most, and that's me really pushing it.
GameCube was the last time you saw a console pushed like to its at least marginal potential from the beginning.
And that was only 50%.
Yeah, you're probably not going to see that too much anymore because games cost too much to make, and unless you have a developer that's like that embed with the hardware like Factor 5 was at the beginning of the GameCube era, you're not going to get that kind of stuff day one.
But I do think, like, let's say for instance I do think, and you know what, I'm just going to say it's coming. A Metroid game is going to come to the Wii. I think that is going to be the game that really pushes what the Wii U is capable of in terms of graphical fidelity. But even then, like you said, ShadowCasts, we're not going to see it. We're not going to see that system pushed beyond the level that the GameCube was pushed, and we're not going to see any of these systems like that.
No, I kind of, unfortunately, I saw the writing on the wall with this. We talked about this probably at Gamers at Large right after Wii U came out, and I kind of said that, look, I think that all three of these platforms have already plateaued, and the reason why I say that is because technology has plateaued as a whole. The only thing that's happening with GPUs right now is that they're getting smaller.
They're getting more powerful.
Yeah, but you're getting more powerful doing the same thing. It's not a revolutionary leap like it was from, say, the TNT graphics card from a long time ago to programmable shaders. Like, programmable shaders have been around since 2005 now. there's no way to increase that and make it more powerful. The next gradual step that everybody wants to go to visually, that the consumer can see and the developer can see, that will benefit them, is real-time ray tracing. And the hardware isn't going to be there for 10 years. It isn't going to be there, period. So what do you do? What do you do with dedicated embedded hardware that's going to continue to bring that impression level on and on and on? And that's kind of why I sided with Iwata when he said that, you know, the time for graphics and constantly trying to update graphics has passed, because there's nothing really to do extra at this point. Developers are coming up with buzzwords and they can't explain them.
Well,
I mean,
people are talking about deferred shading, and deferred shading is a way of manipulating language. It has nothing to do with actual, how can I say this? It doesn't have anything to do with shadows. It's the way the light is calculated throughout the scene. It's not.
Well,
and no person can see that.
Well, the thing is that, you know, like a lot of people say they want to see the power, they want to be impressed, people want to be wowed. But the thing is, like you said, technology has reached a point where if you're thinking you're going to see the graphical leap we saw when we first saw the N64, or from the N64 to the GameCube, or from the PS1 to the PS2, like, or even the PS2 to the PS3, we're not going to see that type of graphical leap again. We're not.
I mean, I would argue that a lot of people say that, oh, you know, a lot of developers say, oh, we hit this wall in the 7th generation. I would argue we even hit it in the 6th generation, because a lot of these stuff that developers were bragging about in the 7th generation that they were doing, it was being done in the 6th generation. It was being done on the PS2. It was being done on the Xbox, and it was being done on the, well, especially, it was being done especially on the GameCube because of Nintendo.
Standard definition. That was the only difference.
Exactly. The only thing they done was make the jump to 1080p. But even Sony and Microsoft, their hardware designs were more or less based on what was done on the GameCube. They basically tried to imitate GameCube in 1080p in HD. Kind of failed a bit because they only ended up with like 540p games most of the time.
Yeah.
And that's all these companies are doing. They're trying to do. A lot of these companies are just basically trying to replicate. All of these companies are, including Nintendo themselves, are just trying to replicate what was done on the GameCube in high definition.
Yeah.
Because to me, that is where they hit the wall. Because all those different effects, all those features and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, they weren't necessarily maybe done on programmable shaders and stuff, but and sure, certain tricks were used to get certain results. But the fact is, it was being done.
Yeah.
So
Tessellation was done on the GameCube.
So you've hit this wall. So what? So when people say these games aren't next gen, I want to be wowed. Where's the power? You're not gonna see it. You're not gonna see it. Instead, and this is gonna terrify most third-party developers right now, if they're listening to this, you're actually going to have to learn how to have great, unique game concepts. So having a bald-headed white guy with a 5 o'clock shadow going around shooting people is getting kind of old. We need something new.
It's not even
You're absolutely right. Like, it's next generation. I think people get caught up on graphics. It's not just that. I mean, gameplay and how the concepts of games, but I don't see anybody really doing anything.
But it's not even just unique concepts. What we need are developers who are willing to put the effort. The only reason there's complaints that we need more power is mostly down to lazy developers. At the end of the day, I mean, you even take an intensive game on the PC now, you know, because at the moment for my GPU. On my PC, because I game on my PC as well. My GPU, I ain't gonna lie, could do with an upgrade, but even if I run these games, they can't run on maximum settings due to the limitations of my current GPU. Even if I run it at medium at 720p, I'm not seeing that much of a difference when I'm scaling the game back down.
Just higher.
If anything, I'm happy to have it scaled down because it runs better.
Yep. I mean, basically, you're fighting a war between lazy-ass developers who don't want to put effort to optimize the code. I'm playing GTA 5 right now on my PC. That could easily be on the PS4 or the Xbox One or even the Wii U.
I
what settings you got it at? I'm playing mine right now.
I have a problem with that because that's another thing that where we're talking about as far as like priorities when it comes to stuff like that. Like we're so focused on what's way in front of the horizon line when it comes to say performance and graphics and games and stuff like that. Like why am I so focused that my game is in 1080p when there's only one local light in the scene? Why do I want a game to be 1080p 60 frames per second when even in Grand Theft Auto 5, one of the greatest looking games in the franchise, has pop-up daggone telephone wire? Like what?
Yep.
Come on, man. Like that kind of stuff should have ended in the PS2 era.
The
We have all this extra CPU power and we're not using it for the things we should be using it for.
And it's silly, and this is one thing I've got to respect about Shinen is that, you know, when they were when I was reading the interview of them when they were talking about developing Nano Assault Neo, they said that they had the game on the Wii U running at 1080p, but they said they literally saw no difference. So rather than waste 200% of resources to take up the fill rate, instead they just scaled it back down to 720p and added extra effects in. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. A lot of people hear, you know, oh, the game's going to be in 720p. Oh, that's not next gen. A lot of people don't realize 720p for a lot of companies is a design choice. If you're not seeing any benefits from upgrading from 720p to 1080p, and why waste the resources when you can use them for other things? And
here's the other thing too. How big is the file size of that game now compared to if it was in 1080p? So now you have a lot more people willing to download it because there are more people with the bandwidth able to download it at one time versus if it was a 1080p game and now it's 1 gig instead of 200 megabytes.
I'm not going to talk to you about that 60 gigabyte download.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to talk about it.
You know, those are things where whether you have my advice or not on networking, which I have not done yet, but I'll make that video eventually. I keep promising it, but it is coming. You could have the best network in the world. You can have Google Fiber, and you're going to be waiting because it's bottlenecked at the Xbox Live or the PlayStation 4 level when it comes to that. They're trunking bandwidth when you're trying to download your games now. And I don't know if that's because they don't have the extra resources in this cloud that's supposed to be the initiative for the next generation or what. But
that's another thing I have an issue. That's another thing as well. And this is going to stray a little bit off gaming. I mean, people will say that, yeah, but I've got fast internet. That's not going to be a problem. It don't matter the speed of your internet. If the speed of their servers can't keep up, then what's the point of having, 100? What's the point of having 100 meg? What's the point of having 100 megabyte internet if the speed of the servers you're receiving the information from can only transmit it at, say, 40 megabits a second?
Yeah, I was downloading daggone Destiny, the Destiny Alpha and the Destiny Beta. I was downloading the files for it at 30K at one point, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like,
that sounds like some bullshit, dude.
Clearly, it's not me because I'm downloading stuff on this Wii U pretty fast, and at the time I was downloading Killer Instinct pretty fast. So what's going on here? And that kind of stuff. I feel that what's going on right now is that we're waving magic before the crowd. It's like, pay no attention to the man behind the fucking curtain here, but we're going to give you all these features that you should have gotten in the 7th generation. Which is 1080p displays with the PlayStation 3. And you're just now getting 1080p 30 frames per second on these new consoles.
Well, put it like this. Like, I went from when I was at university, I went from being in a place where I had 30 meg internet, and then I went to a next place which went from having 12 megabit internet on a dedicated line, and now I'm back at my mum's house where we're getting about 8 megabytes of internet. All shit, and there's multiple computers sharing it in the house. I haven't seen much difference in my download speeds, honestly. Really, most of my files that I download are downloading at more or less the same speed.
Because it depends on the server you pull it from.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I got There's an interesting question here. Somebody said, "Is DirectX 12 really going to make games better, like all those Xbox are trying to tell people?"
It's
I don't
not
think
going to
it
make
will.
the
What do you
game
think?
look better. It's just going to make it easier for them to develop them.
It's
Exactly.
not even going to do that. It's just going to give Microsoft more money.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
That's what
like
Microsoft said.
DirectX
That's what
12.
Microsoft said with DirectX 9 to DirectX 10, and we still have people running games in DirectX 9 today.
I mean, every damn time you download a game, that's like 95% of the games you download, because I'm a converter to Steam. It's awesome. Would you like to upgrade to DirectX? I already downloaded this shit once before.
But while I'm thinking about that though, isn't it time for Microsoft to cut the cord on DirectX 9? Like every major embedded GPU at this point supports at least DirectX 10. Like
I don't even think it's just Microsoft, because even these, a lot of these companies, when they put out their GPUs, they say they're DirectX 11, they say they support DirectX 11 and stuff like that. But when you install the initial drivers for these GPUs, a lot of them are still installing with DirectX 9, and it's only when you actually install the game itself that's when it updates it to DirectX 11.
Yeah, the latest Catalyst drivers are always, well, I put it like this: the default Catalyst driver is always going to be DirectX 9 preferred before you start updating everything. And I don't know about the NVIDIA side. I haven't used an NVIDIA card in a couple of years. I'm probably not a good.
The last card I had was an NVIDIA card, and even though it's some years old, but it was at the time it was DirectX 10 compatible. But the DirectX drivers I was getting for it were DirectX 9.
Interesting. Not surprising though. Not surprising. And yeah, they're like all the games I play on PC right now. They're DirectX 9. Like I would run them in Windows 7, and I would run them in Windows 7 with compatibility mode for Windows XP. And then that's how I would get my boosted performance. And then I would ensure that the DirectX 9 drivers are primary, and I get the most of my performance out of that. If I try to run a native app, Windows x64, be it Windows 8 or Windows 7 or whatever, and then try to run DirectX 11 driver compatibility, I'm not going to get the same type of performance depending on the game. Like I'm having performance issues in MMOs at this point, and that's really bad. It shouldn't be.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that way, but that's whoever makes the games. It is what it is.
And this is what I find a bit hypocritical, because these developers are tightening. We want more power for this and more power for that, but yet you are still programming with old drivers.
Let me put it this way: these developers are like a dude saying, that old fantasy. I want to have a girlfriend and a wife. You can't even keep one woman happy. How are you going to keep two? So the point boils down to this: developers can't even.
No, it's not.
I'll
take it even a step further. These developers are like lazy ass men who say, "I want a good woman who's going to cook and clean for me and do all of this stuff," and but yet you don't want to get up off your ass and even get a job.
Yeah, that's. Oh man, these individuals that make these games. So I kind of replied to Review Tech USA because I kind of side with some of these guys, because some of these guys it has nothing to do with them. So Rich got mad that an artist for a game complained about somebody basically bitching their game out. So he's granted, yes, the person is wrong for complaining about that person saying it wasn't their type of game. Total Biscuit was ultimately going to review this dude's game, and he basically didn't have glowing praise about it, basically because it just wasn't his. If you don't play MMOs, you're probably not going to have a good review for an MMO at this point, right? So he kind of like let that be known before he went ahead and made the review or whatever, right? And so this dude goes on this rant or whatever to make these tweets about him and his opinion of the game or what have you, and basically in a negative slant saying this guy's an idiot for saying he doesn't like our game. So Rich is complaining about that, but then he goes like off the deep end a little bit and starts saying that this dude shouldn't be developing games if he doesn't like complaints about his game. I'm like, no, maybe the dude should just continue making art for the game and not be on social media. He should still be making games.
Yeah.
But you have a public relations person, you have a media manager, you have a social media manager at your publisher that takes care of that type of shit. You shouldn't be dealing with that. That should be the discussion. You shouldn't tell this dude to get out of games completely, man. What is wrong with you? Like, some people are like really trying to stir shit up to get views. Like,
here's what I got to say to this.
Go ahead.
If people want other people to get out of gaming, just look at what happened to Sega getting out of the console business.
That didn't help.
Their games became far worse. Yeah, how many good Sega games have come out as of late?
Phantasy Star Online 2, and I've yet to play it, but all I've been hearing
I said good.
Yakuza's good.
Yakuza is good.
Sonic Boom is good.
No,
for real. Like, compared to the games now,
Sonic Boom is good.
Compared to their games now, you might as well say it's good.
Let me put it this way: Sonic Boom is good. To quote Triumph the Comic Dog, for me to poop on.
It's a decent TV show though. Kids love the show.
Look, let me put it this way: if Sonic Boom's idea was to get kids to watch the TV show, good job.
They succeeded.
But you know what? When I was a kid, we had stuff that was built to sell you toys. It's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Of course.
And our stuff was way better than Sonic Boom. Even when they had Chief Leo and Michelangelo with a baseball bat, it was better than Sonic Boom. My God. Ugh.
And then Michael Bay came along and turned them into alien reptilians.
We should not talk about that.
You mean the Goombas that shall not be named with masks on?
We won't talk about it.
Goombas that are Ninja Turtles apparently.
We won't talk about it.
Those are sumo Goombas.
We won't talk about it either way. We won't talk.
Those aren't Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're Teenage Mutated Ninja Turtles.
I don't think those were teenagers.
Teenagers.
Those are grown-ass men with steroids.
No, those are sumo turtles, man.
I got one more thing I kind of wanted to talk about, and that was more of a couple of people lately have been voicing and airing their grievances as to. I mean, even me and Grimpachi actually were kind of discussing this a little bit in our last discussion. It wasn't the main topic at all, but people are making these decisions to say that the Wii U is not worth its current value right now at $300 with 2 games, and because it lacks. Well, a lot of people are saying it's because it lacks certain features compared to the other hardware. Not necessarily the hardware differences themselves, but features. And I've
just got one thing to say to that. You have to pay to use those features.
Not only that, I'm like, so the Wii U is missing features, but those other platforms aren't missing features that the Wii U has. How do you? So nobody ever mentioned the fact that Microsoft made up for, basically it tried to make Miiverse for it. You have game hubs now for different games. You can chat about those different games there. You can post screenshots now, which was once a Wii U only thing at some point. And now all of a sudden, the Wii U doesn't have features. But I'm like, y'all should have been talking about all the features that those platforms didn't have in comparison to that, or do a actual objective comparison between all of them and list all the features that one platform has and the other one doesn't. And that would be a better comparison. You can't say the Wii. I'm gonna go ahead and let you talk just a second, man. But you can't say that the Wii U is missing, say, a voice chat feature if you don't mention the fact that you can't create your own achievements on the Xbox One. You get what I'm saying? Like that's a dynamic feature only the Wii U has, and it's a detriment to other platforms. So you got to mention all that shit.
I told you, Nintendo can't win.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the Miiverse thing, I gotta ask. I forgot which came out first, the Wii U or the Vita.
The Wii U.
The Vita. The Vita came out before the Wii U.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Vita has. It's not highly advertised, but everything you do on the Vita it's basically the same thing as Miiverse, except for you don't have to go to another app. Like if I do anything, everybody's going to see it. The only thing difference is like it's not a broad thing. Like I think the only way it works is like your friends and friends of your friends can see it, and people around you can see it.
Well, it's the same way on the PS4. You talking about the feed, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the feed stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was originally on the PSP, wasn't it? Wasn't
No.
it on the last version of the PSP, the last firmware? I thought it was.
Oh, it could have been on the last firmware. I had a red God of War PSP, and I stopped using it a long time ago. I don't know what.
I think it was on there too, but it's how can I say this? Similar in feature, but completely different in execution. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, they're similar. They're similar, but they're not exactly the same. I'm not getting at that. I'm just saying they're similar enough to compare. But what I'm saying is like what? All right, what is the Wii U? I don't remember. Like the only thing I could tell that was completely different that the Wii U had was Miiverse, and
it has
the gamepad functionality, obviously.
It has Miiverse. It has Direct Boot. It has that isn't available anywhere.
You mean the feature they updated where you like press the home button and then you could like launch like
you tap the home button or the power button on your gamepad.
It has TV remote functionality. It has universal remote functionality, which trust me, it comes in handy when you don't want to stretch over to the remote and the gamepad.
You can control everything in your home without any extra hardware. You don't have to plug in like you don't need a certain type of HDMI cable to make that work. You don't need a how can I say this, a IR blaster.
To be honest, it's the most effective universal TV remote I've ever used. It works flawlessly. I've used universal TV remotes before, and they cut out, they lose signal. You have to set them back up again.
There's a number of features that there's the direct video chat that I guess ended up happening later on once the Xbox One. And did the 360 ever get Skype?
The only thing close to some direct video chat would be like using Skype, I guess.
Yeah, but did the 360 ever get it? I don't know. I think the Xbox One has it. I think. I'm not sure. I haven't really tried it, but to my knowledge, the direct video chat is the only, at least first party solution that will let you do that kind of thing. In addition to that, obviously there's the remote playability that is directly built into the hardware. Now there's argument back and forth as to whether the PS4 renders everything for the Vita and vice versa. It depends on the game. Some games it uses both. Some of them you have to put the Vita in a certain mode and then the PS4 turns on and then streams over. And some you activate from the Vita and vice versa. But it's all the same with the Wii U and it works the same way every time.
It's the only web browser that it has the only web browser that allows you to actually watch. It allows you to actually watch a YouTube video and surf the web at the same time.
Yep.
Without actually having to switch between tabs or anything like that. You can have YouTube running on your main screen. You can still be surfing the web doing whatever you want, or set up your next YouTube video on the gamepad.
And that's not just limited to that either. You can go on Last.fm or any page, like if you wanted to serve up music and things like that. All your basically that is a streaming device waiting to happen, and that's part of the reason why I didn't have the optical disc media support, if you will, because they and Apple foresaw that was dead. That's why they didn't opt for Blu-ray at all. There's obviously no point in even going that route.
Not to mention, if you aren't Sony, you have to pay a part of your profits from your hardware to Sony and LG every time you sell something with Blu-ray.
The Wii still uses a Blu-ray drive. It just uses a flash. It's just flash to its
LG Blu-ray drive.
It just doesn't have the codec.
It's flashed to work. Nintendo's flashed it to work with its own format.
Yeah.
So. With that being said, it has that and the aforementioned the custom achievements in Miiverse.
Hold up, Shadows. One thing you missed about the drive, it's the Blu-ray drive itself. It also reads at a higher speed than that of the Xbox One and PS4, which allows it to not have to install the games to play them.
Yes, it does, and the reason why it does that, it reads at 1/3 of the rate of the intake speed of the DDR3 memory controller. So basically, more than one task can happen one time at the memory controller while it's streaming the game into RAM. So, and obviously that's something that Nintendo's been doing a lot since back to the GameCube days. They always did things in threes. So when you on the hardware side, there was always more than twice the amount of available bandwidth going in both directions. So there was never any bottlenecking on the memory side. They specifically went for the memory bandwidth approach rather than, hey, really, really high frequency, but we're going to have to wait after these other cycles catch up to do this one thing. But that's more hardware than anything else. So it's the only platform with a stylus that I know of at this point, as far as the home console goes.
Yeah, I think it is.
And while it has a camera, let me see.
I guess you could. Well, I guess you could say built-in mic and a controller.
It's the only system that's backwards compatible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's.
Well, no, the other ones are. They are.
You just have to pay a lot of money for it.
Don't say that joke.
It's not.
I mean,
I
guess what people are saying about the whole, the features that are missing, I guess, are what people like generalize as a quote unquote standard feature, like the Wii U doesn't have.
My assumption is that they're all talking about
who establishes the standards, though.
Well, I mean, at this point, like, I guess standards are just, created by the majority. I guess
what the populace wants, the majority of the populace wants.
You just remember what was it? Remember 720p used to be True HD, then Sony, I think, coined 1080p was True HD or something like that. I mean,
full HD, I guess is what they tried to do.
It's just whatever people accept. So, like, the Wii U doesn't have, like, party chat.
That's about the only feature I hear people complaining about.
A feature that the Wii U, like the next Nintendo, or maybe they can do it now, I don't know, but they definitely need to get some type of better ID service, because I get tired of having to call them to.
I'm pretty sure they're working on that now, though.
This is the thing I have the issue with the whole party chat thing, and don't get me wrong, if party chat came to the Wii U, I'd be jumping over the moon. So, it's not a thing where I'm against it, but if you notice, for both systems, for the other systems that have it, it's more or less a premium feature. So, it's like, you have to pay for Sony's online, you have to pay for Microsoft's online. You don't have to pay for the Wii U's online. So it's like, how are we really in a position to be arguing for party chat when the other two, the audiences of the other two platforms are paying for their online?
I mean, you don't have to pay for party chat. I mean, that could be absolutely free. It's free on plenty of other services. It's free on PlayStation.
Steam.
If you got a Vita, you don't have to pay for it. That's the thing. That's why I always get on PlayStation guys, because I'm talking to you. I don't have a PS4. I'm saying talking to you on the Vita. I could talk to Vita owners, PlayStation 4 owners. I don't pay anything, but you pay. They're like, I don't mind paying. I'm like, but you're paying
for something. For one, I wouldn't really count. Your point's fair on the Vita side of things, but in terms of the PC, I wouldn't really count that, because you can't really charge people on the PC, because if they can't use the service on Steam, they'll use it on something else. There's Skype, there's Uvu, there's Google Hangouts, there's so many things they could use the service for free on.
Yeah, and here's the other thing
too.
So these features that, because I'm pretty sure we can go down a list of things that feature side that other platforms have that the Wii U doesn't. So we can start talking about it doesn't stream to Twitch. It doesn't you don't have party chat. You can't do game capture and things like that. But those three things I just mentioned, what exactly is the quality of those? And the reason why I say that is game capture.
Sorry, I just caught
that really shouldn't be bragged as a feature, particularly since it doesn't even come close to anything on the software side, let alone what a dedicated capture card would do. Then we talk about party chat, like Hangouts destroys it. We're doing it right now, and compare it to any of the voice quality that you hear on Xbox Live or on PlayStation Network. It's night and day.
No, I have to disagree. Now, I mean, maybe not game chat built in, but I have to say, like, I talked to a lot of people using Skype on Xbox One. I'm very surprised that sounds that clear, and it runs perfectly fine.
I can record and analyze the stream, and you can see the dips in the frequency. It's bad. And
I mean,
to be honest, this isn't exactly clear, but it's by comparison. If you look at the waveform, it's bad. We're paying for something that technically this is what our cell phone sounded like about 5 years ago. And that's just being real. From a pure technical level, that's about what it sounds like. And even though it sounds better than, say, original Xbox, come on, man. $60 a year?
I mean, well, if that's the case, if we're talking about quality, then there's a lot of things on the Wii U we may not count either. Because, like, let's be honest, the Wii U's web browser is good for a console. It's like the best. I say it's the best web browser I use on a console. It's not the best web browser.
Oh,
like,
no,
you know what I'm saying?
no,
If we're gonna do like that, then a lot of these features are like whatever, you know. But if we put them in that bubble, then they're cool.
So
I think the point.
You know why I mentioned that though? Because that is the focus to say that one gaming console is better than the other, but nobody ever uses the web browser to say that Wii U is better than the other because they're more focused on it being a gaming console. And that should be that's the whole point of me mentioning this, is that it should make the console better for gaming.
I think I get where ShadowCasts is coming from in a sense. For instance, like, you know, for instance, if you buy a phone and it has a good camera on it, fair enough, you'll use it to take pictures and stuff like that. But fair enough, if you're the everyday person, you'll use it to take pictures and stuff. But you go to a professional photographer, you'll never catch them using the camera feature on a mobile phone. Not by a long shot, because they know that a dedicated device for anything is always going to outshine a multi-purpose device at the end of the day. A Canon SLR camera is going to wipe the floor with any camera you can put on a phone. So, you know, it's just like a dedicated Blu-ray player is always going to have more features and more functionality surrounding Blu-ray playback than the Blu-ray player on a games console. A dedicated device is always going to do it better than a device that is just made for multi-purpose functionality. So, you know, it's whatever the primary focus you're buying that device for. Like ShadowCasts says, I didn't buy my Wii U to surf the internet. I've got my PC for that. I buy my Wii U to play the games. Now, at times, do I use the web browser when it's convenient? Yeah, of course I do. But I'm not gonna sit here and say that, you know, I bought the Wii U because it had the best web browser feature. No, that would be a bit asinine if you ask me.
No, I mean, okay, I get what you're saying. All right, so when it comes to people saying, like, 'cause I hear a lot of people say, you know, it's not worth. I remember saying it wasn't worth $300, like, what, year 2 or year 1 or something like that. But that was because their Mario Kart wasn't out. All these games weren't even out yet. I don't even think 3D World was out yet when I was saying that. So it wasn't a lot of stuff to play at the time. But if you're talking about, like, some people are looking at it like this: $300, I can get a Wii U with 2 games. Sometimes a Wii U with 3 games. Or I can buy an Xbox One for $50 more. And most of the time you're going to find the Assassin's Creed bundle and you're going to get 1.5 games because, let's be honest, Unity doesn't work. So some people feel that's better. And I mean,
but that's their opinion.
That's what it just really boils down to. It's just,
if people feel that they're getting better value out of buying the Xbox One simply due to the fact that the games they want are on that system, or the system has certain features that they like, then that's totally down to them. I bought the Wii U. I bought the Wii U when it was at full price. I bought the Wii U when it was at full price, and I still don't think I haven't gotten my money's worth with the system. I mean, if you're talking about initially at launch, then no system really gives you value for money at the beginning when it launches, because there isn't much to buy on a system when it launches. Every system that launches doesn't really launch with much. But
I will say that the Wii U did launch with, like, what, 34 games?
Yeah, it had a better. That's the best launch. best launch lineup I want to say anybody's had in quite a while, because PS2 was what, Fanavision and the Bouncer,
PS2 had
like,
hardly anything when it came out.
Tech and Tag, like that was it. So and the Xbox and GameCube had like the same like 19 games. It was like what was it, like Cell Damage and some other kind of stupid stuff they came out with at the same time or whatever. And like 20 to 30 games at launches.
The only reason the Wii's launch looked good is because they launched with a Zelda game, and it was just a port from the game.
And it launched with Wii Sports, which everybody, if you knew, even if you went to like a Walmart or whatever, you saw someone playing Wii Sports, you're like, what the hell is this?
Everybody and their mama wanted that game.
Yeah, so
that's true.
A lot of that happened.
But the point is, a lot of this stuff that gamers complain about, and a lot of this stuff that gamers say, it is really and truly just subjective to people's opinion at the end of the day.
The problem is it becomes subjective opinion, then it becomes subjective opinion synthesis, and then we use that as fact, and we can't do that. You can't sit here and say, hey, this collective opinion must be right. The Wii U must be weak because so many people said they feel it's weak because they've seen these games and these games don't look like they're doing this, when I'm looking at the math saying, yes, it is. But, I mean, we talk about features and things like that and all the other kind of crap, and I'm like, so what's more technically advanced and what's not? What requires more processing and overhead and what doesn't? I mean, like, who knows if the Wii U video chat feature is more demanding than any of the voice chat features in any of the other platforms? We don't know that. All I know is that the same people that made Google Hangouts. So we can suggest that, yes, voice chat could be on this platform. Could it be running at the same time a game could? No, there's no way for us to really tell because the Wii U chat is a separate app. But
you mean
is the software there? Yes.
Yeah.
It's just there are so many pieces that are together, right? And there are so many bits and pieces that can be used to suggest one thing versus another. I can use the same broken logic to say the Xbox One is weak, the PlayStation 4 is weak, the PC is weak. All of that kind of stuff can be used, and all you have to do is just use the same circular logic in tandem, basically. One of the worst videos that I've ever seen that was an example of this, Black Bond decided to circle a corner of water generated polygonally in a alpha video of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Mind you, the first issue is that's never seen again in any other footage in that game. It doesn't look like that. Number two, there are PC games you can find like that with that same problem because it's just game design.
I've seen PC games that have looked so intensive on the surface, and then when you go close up to the textures on the walls and stuff, it looks horrible.
You can't pick and choose what you want to use to develop your argument when you want to, especially for something of a technical nature like that. Either you have all the information or you don't. You can't guess. You can't say, well, a whole bunch of people agree with me, so therefore I'm right. You can't. It doesn't work that way.
Well, have you guys seen the comparison of Xenoblade at E3 when they first showed it and now?
No,
I said about 2 months back. I didn't have any proof, but I saw some more footage of Xenoblade, and I was like, it doesn't look as sharp as I originally seen it. But then showing this clip and this comparison, it doesn't. That doesn't mean the game is bad. I'm just saying it doesn't look as good.
I don't know if you guys seen it. Are you talking about the opening cinematic?
I don't know if I don't know what that is. It's just the same.
In the corridor.
It was also a change in art style, though, from one to the other, if I remember correctly.
I mean, well,
three times.
If it was a change in art style, personally, I like the original art style better.
Well,
That's fair.
Yeah, the original art style looked great. I like that too. But there's also, I guess you got to kind of have a look at the whole picture too. So that the cutscene in question is when I guess whoever the main who would end up being the main character walks into a mech, and that's supposedly supposed to be the title sequence for the game when you first started up or whatever. So apparently, like the texture quality or something like that degraded, I guess. Not, I mean, polygonally.
Yeah, we talking about PS2 levels texture. It looked.
I don't know about all that because
No, I'd say Xenoblade Chronicles in terms of the character models. That was a bit closer to PS2 textures.
When you talk about PS2, you mean that there is no volume to the texture whatsoever.
I'm talking about like in his armor, like you could definitely see on the shoulder, like it's like these little creases or cracks in his armor. They basically just like one mesh, flat crap. Like it don't even look, detailed.
Well, this is what you got. This is what you got to understand about Xenoblade Chronicles X. I've actually done research on this. The original Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, the landmass in the game that is covered, that is completely open for you to
because
completely open for you to explore, is I was shocked to find out how it was actually. I thought it was rough. I thought it was roughly about the same size as Skyrim. It turns out that Skyrim is tiny compared to Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii. Xenoblade Chronicles X is meant to be 5 times large. The world is meant to be 5 times larger. The scope is meant to be 5 times larger than Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii. So you imagine comparing something that Skyrim is tiny to, and making it 5 times bigger.
But that's the other thing though. So in that cutscene or whatever, the texture quality or whatever is reduced, if you will, or whatever, right? Then they go to show footage of the game in action, and it has exponentially increased since the last footage that we saw of the mechs flying around and people running around. Now the world, there's no pop in when you move from the mechs and you rise higher and lower and things like that. When they showed the last little bit of footage, that increased over that, but the cutscene is what the focus was. Like
No. Like when I saw the gameplay, I'm assuming it was gameplay when they first showed it off when they were like running. Remember when you said Bond was showing the part with the water? Mm-hmm. I was assuming that was gameplay where he's like running in the open world.
Yes, that was
even that has, things that look better. But like I said, it could be an art decision. The art may just look better to me.
The part that you said was bad, in that same version of the game, they cut to the part where you're actually playing the game. And that footage looks better than you playing the game in the footage that it was compared to previously for the cutscene. So you have the cutscene of him getting into the mech that looks better previously, and then the cutscene of the mech that looks quote-unquote worse now. The gameplay for what looks worse now is better than the gameplay for what looked better back at E3. If you get what I'm saying. It's like they swapped.
And it's not.
It's basically they downgraded the quality of the cutscenes to up the quality of the gameplay.
Exactly.
And it's not even just that, in my opinion. It's that we see so many games that are very, very small in scope that are shown in target renders at high fidelity, and then a year later the downgrade is enormous. Considering what is being done with a game like Xenoblade Chronicles, it is being given a scope on nearly MMORPG level, and with graphic fidelity that far exceeds any MMORPG that is out. Even if there is a slight downgrade in the graphics, if it's and I've seen the comparison videos, even if there is a slight downgrade, what is the big deal when you imagine the scope that is being done on a home console that is meant to be supposedly underpowered? When MMORPGs on PC MMORPGs on PC can't even stretch the boundaries simply for the fact that their worlds are so expansive that just to run smoothly, it's best to just keep them at low fidelity.
What is the big deal? I mean, it depends upon the person. If you want the game to look a certain way and it doesn't look as good as it did before, and that was enticing you to purchase it.
But then why is that important? Why is that?
That's to the person once again.
Yeah, that's true. But that's the thing. But this is what I don't know. Why is that important in relation to the scope of the game itself? When you're talking, clearly the game is being marketed in a way where it's about the content, not the graphics.
Well,
never once has, unlike other companies who brag about the graphical fidelity of their games, never once has Nintendo or Monolith Soft come out and bragged about, how great the game looks. They've always talked about how much content is going to be the game, what you're going to be able to do, the customization, the level of customization you have, being able to go online. They're not trying to market this game as don't get me wrong, I think the game still looks amazing for what it is, but they're not trying to market this game as some kind of graphical powerhouse. They're marketing it in terms of content, the same way that Blizzard would market World of Warcraft. They're not going to and as well as charge you for a bunch of expansion packs for that content, but the same way Blizzard would market World of Warcraft, they're not marketing it for the graphics, because if they were, they would fail miserably.
Well, I'll answer that. All right, so I remember playing Oblivion for the first time, and I was like, man, look at all this stuff I can do. And I thought the game looked good too at the time. And my friend was like, yeah, it's big, it's a lot of stuff you could do, but it looks ugly. So he didn't want to play it. I mean, that's just how he was. It's just like, I remember.
That's his loss due to his own narcissism.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's just like, I remember The Order. With The Order, they advertise. I remember them in developing. When the developers would talk about it, they would mention like the graphics. That's all they would really talk about, is the graphical fidelity of the game. And if you were following that stuff, you'll know that was the push. The push was apparently its story and the graphics. But what everybody complained about, the game was short, and they complained there wasn't like any diversity in the gameplay. But that wasn't their goal, because they even mentioned that you're going to see these awesome cutscenes, you're going to see these great graphics, and then and when you least expect it, this is what they said, when you least expect it, you're going to have some gameplay. That's what they said. So go ahead.
King Grimpachi, haven't we learned since the 7th gen that when a developer starts talking about how great the graphics are going to be, to just grab your hat, get your stuff, say you're going to the bathroom, get your car, drive away, because the game is going to have some issues?
No. What I'm saying is, like he was mentioning, Nintendo. He's right. Nintendo isn't saying, yes, Xenoblade is this graphically demanding game. This is what our point. No, the game. And Nintendo always advertises the gameplay and the content that it provides. But with The Order, they were only talking about the story and the graphics, and rarely talking about gameplay.
And like I said,
that is
normally the point when you need to, when the red light needs to go off.
Again, I get what you're saying. And again, I get what you're saying, and what you're saying is, actually true. Again, it comes down to the people. I mean, I spoke to someone who said they bought the Order 1886. And they knew the game was going to be short and whatever, but they wanted to play the game, and that is fine. I don't have an issue with what people necessarily want to play, whether the game is short, whether it's long, whether it's graphically intensive, whether it's not. At the end of the day, it's down to what you want. My issue is that people are quick to criticize. People are quick to criticize something just based on what they see, if you get what I mean. And they don't look at the full picture that is being shown to them. I mean, you're right. People who saw the Order 1886, if the developers came out and said, this game is going to be about the graphics and this, that, or whatever and stuff like that, then for those people who decide to buy it, they should know that they're buying it for those reasons. The only difference I would really argue with the Order 1886 compared to Xenoblade Chronicles X is that I personally, this is my opinion, but I personally believe that Xenoblade Chronicles X gives you more than $60 worth of a game, or in my case, it would be £50. I don't agree that the Order 1886 necessarily gives you £50 worth of a game. Now, I'll take an example from Nintendo side again. When they release games like Captain Toad and Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, those games were very graphically intensive. They're some of the most graphically intensive games on the Wii U at the moment. Content-wise, though, they don't really have as much content compared to some of their other games.
But they price them appropriately.
They price it appropriately based on what they feel is the value they're giving to consumers. So that is the only point I will argue. And again, that can be seen as subjective. I mean, anyone who spends £50 on the order 1886 and feels they've gotten their money's worth, then that's down to them. That's their opinion. If you feel you've got your money's worth, that's fine. But that, again, that's just my opinion. But I think what a lot of it comes down to is that people just need to learn to respect what other people's decisions are and what their opinions are and what they choose to do with, and I'll emphasizing this, their money. At the end of the day, if I want to spend £50 on something that I believe, and this is not even anything to do with gaming, or just in general, if I want to spend £50 on something that, you know, most people believe is worth £1, then that's my headache. Why should anyone else feel the need to complain unless it is affecting the people around me?
Are you referring back to like the videos and people saying the Wii U isn't worth $300? I mean, the only reason why I would see them I'm just saying it as a general thing. You know, we could relate to anything in this podcast in terms of opinions and the value of things. But I'm just saying that as a general statement. People shouldn't be so concerned about what other people do with their money.
Well, I'll even say literally that the only MCM device developed this generation that obviously costs a lot of money, and it's also low power, so it's made to be really, really, really small. That includes 2 titles and a custom wireless interface that no other platform has. Like the PS4 does not operate at 5 gigahertz. So when you have things like that going on, and those are things that are custom, that like they adhere to standards, but they add things on top of them, so they don't necessarily they're not standard as in they aren't they're proprietary and therefore they're created internally. That's money that the initial investors had to pay to create the product that is being sold. So when you're talking about things like that doesn't use any open standards that are free to apply at any time or what have you, and you're selling that for $300 when you were selling it for $350 with, I guess, one title you could consider being as a bundle. Value then, when you try to wedge an opinion on it, saying that platform with 2 games isn't a value, while saying a $500 system were now a $350 system, maybe with a bundled game, and really nothing else really to show for it with that. I mean, once you buy it anyway, you have to pay for additional features and whatnot that it actually boasts. That's a bit of a skewed comparison, and I can't really. I guess the issue is, if you're going to say that and say that alone. Don't make comparisons to other things unless you also do another question where you say, is this worth $400? Is this worth $350 with what you're given? And is it worth that value to you, and why? And if you notice, the vast majority of people that have done that have went out there to make said video, if you will, on that one platform, have not also done that for those other 2. And that's the bulk of the issue, probably more than anything else. It's always, let's make this negative slant, but let's not say why it's positive elsewhere or why it's also negative elsewhere. There are plenty of things that are blanket statements across everything 8th generation, but nobody wants to talk about that.
We can talk about today.
The question is why.
I think the answer for me is that this boils down to popularity.
A popular opinion, yeah.
It's like that with everything.
Yeah. But people use popular opinion as dedicated fact, when dedicated fact and popular opinion aren't exactly the same thing. You can have a fact that could be popularly known and be true, and then you can have a fact that isn't popularly known and is true, but people will say it isn't because they think otherwise, which we all know is not the right thing.
I have people telling me on a daily basis that the Wii U isn't profitable.
I could tell you
Nintendo say that they were making profit on that thing right before Mario Kart 8 came out.
It was profitable before they said it was profitable, because they said it was profitable with the sale of one game. And it has the highest attach rate of any of the platforms right now.
Any of the home platforms?
Yes. But people are still telling me on a daily basis that platform isn't profitable. That is a problem.
I have a thing. Well, they could say that all they want because the only people laughing are Nintendo all the way to the bank.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I was going to say, and I'll give him a shout out to my buddy Lager over there on KD Flow, that channel. He always says, like, well, he always brings up profits versus sales. If you're looking at sales, and that is what you're going by, and not the profit the company is actually making from the product, you're not really going to be able to give a proper, educated response on it.
Exactly. And I had another discussion about said profits or whatever, and then instead of talking about the profits which would be on their fiscal results for every quarter, I was directed to marketwatch.com, and I'm like, all they're going to give you is what the investor wants to believe. They're not going to give you the actual financial reports that were actually polled by the company because they have to divulge them publicly, or that's basically a lawsuit waiting to happen. So why don't you go to the source, find the actual financial documents, and then use that to say they're not profitable, because it was said in black and white whether they are or not. I mean, just for reference, they haven't not been profitable only twice in the past 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Overall. But every day you'll hear something different that contrasts that with absolutely nothing to back it up.
Well, I mean, come on. We all know they're going bankrupt.
I mean, another thing that's like, it's not the popular thing to know, but, look at the Vita. The Vita, I own the Vita and the 3DS, and they're both cool systems. The Vita has more high-rated games than the 3DS. But you mention that, it's like, no, it doesn't, and you show it to them, and they're like, well, they don't care. But
people don't want to believe what
they don't want to believe things.
It isn't the popular kid. So what they'll say is, oh, it's a failure and things of that nature. And I'm like, well, I'm looking in Japan and it's doing okay. So
that to me, I always had and I made the video about it. Like, if you own a PS4, why not get a Vita to accompany your PS4? Why get a PS4 and then get a 3DS, but you won't get a Wii U?
People are doing
things don't match up.
People are doing it.
But no, here's the thing though. You hear the excuse, well, the Wii U is weak, then why do you have a 3DS? Oh, because it has all these good games on it. Well, the PS Vita has better rated games. Why don't you have that? It goes with your PS4.
I could kind of answer that. A lot of the games that are like highly rated on the Vita are shared with the PlayStation 4. So
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's
they don't say it. Or if it's not shared with the PlayStation 4, Sony's doing stupid crap like tear away highly rated game on Vita. Tearaway's coming to the PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Gravity Rush is a pretty good game on the Vita coming to the PlayStation 4. So it doesn't even matter. You might as well just keep the PlayStation 4.
Well, I mean, you have Sony's lack of supporting the system. You have the Vita is a hardcore gaming handheld, but a lot of the games on it, as you said, are hardcore games that are also on the PS4 or before the PS4 came out, or on the PS3. So it's like, why? There's no real. I mean, and the thing is, like, the Vita could have been really successful. There's a template for making a successful handheld, and Sony was like, nah, we're not going to follow that playbook. We'll make our own playbook.
Fuck they rules up.
Oh, man.
It's like they had the rules set about right in front of them and said,
yeah,
fuck that shit, I'm going to do what I want to do.
It's like, hey, these guys have had four consecutive successful handhelds. We're not going to take a page out of their book. No. We'll blaze our own path.
Here's the problem. So now the Vita fans are feeling the same way the majority of us, the few of us are left, true console fans, are feeling. And that's somewhat betrayed, because anybody that bought a Vita at its launch price point bought it for games that are probably going to be exclusive to the Vita. If you bought a Wii U, you don't plan on buying a whole bunch of Call of Duty games when you buy a Wii U. If you plan on buying a PlayStation 4 as a true console gamer, you probably were looking at Infamous and not a whole bunch of Battlefield games. And if you got an Xbox One, you probably were at least attempting to think that you're going to get a Halo game at some point. Like, you can't. To me, thinking that these consoles are glorified PCs is a waste of space, and that's a really, really bad attitude to have. I know that third parties are quote unquote important to a lot of these individuals. Yes, they are, but at the end of the day, these platforms exist for a reason. And if the only reason that you're owning these platforms, like if you're owning an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4 just to play Battlefield on both of them, like who are you? And unfortunately, there's a lot of you, because if you look at the sales numbers, that's basically what it's saying. People are buying PlayStation 4s and buying Xbox Ones and buying.
That's over $1,000 just to play the same game twice.
And these people also have PCs. Go figure. It blows my mind if you look at the statistical data for the things that are selling. That's exactly the statement that's happening, and that's kind of like why I was worried in the last discussion I had with Grimpachi, because it's our hobby. We can't take it back because we're letting people that want it to be something else turn it into that. And we kind of have to like see the facades for what they are and keep it moving, and not how can I say this, perpetuate the same problem, because we're going to be doomed to repeat what happened in '83 if we don't if we don't do what we need to do now, because it's coming.
And
I think it's already happening.
I have to kind of follow up with what you said there, because it's just like I remember in the 7th generation, I had an Xbox 360 for a period of time, and this was before I knew about games like Bayonetta and Darkside. This before I knew about certain games like Bayonetta and stuff like that, because obviously those games weren't as advertised as the big billboards of Call of Duty that you see on a day-to-day basis. And it's just like when I had the Xbox 360, it was like at the time a lot of the game, and I had a gaming PC at the time as well. Well, first and foremost, I started off playing Final Fantasy 13, and that didn't go too well. And like, I was thinking about all the games I would like to get on the Xbox 360, and I thought to myself, I can get them on PC. They'll run better. They'll cost me less money. If I really want them that badly, I could potentially get them for free. And it just, the reason to even keep the Xbox 360 just didn't seem viable. Fast forward to 8th gen now, I am trying, apart from a couple exclusives, which I don't mind having on either system, but for me, it's just not enough yet. I can't think of any reason why I would need to buy a PS4 and Xbox One at the moment, because everything I want, I can get on. Everything I could probably want, which is not really much at the moment, because most of what's out now is garbage, to be honest. Any game I could probably want, third-party wise, I can get on the PC, and I just don't see the point. The main reason I have a Nintendo system is because I enjoy Nintendo exclusives. If the other systems had more exclusives that I could enjoy, I would be more inclined to have those systems. And it's not that I think they're bad systems. I think every system that is out is more than powerful enough to do what it needs to do. They're all good systems, but if you cannot provide me with the content that I need to play on those systems, then I don't see why I need to invest the money in it.
Yeah, and it doesn't even exclude PC either, because there's stuff like to me, Fear is that's a PC that should have been a PC exclusive. That franchise was built for PC. So was Stalker, Half-Life, all these kind of franchises, Deus Ex, things like that. Like these games.
Yeah, because I played Unreal Tournament on the PC and I played it on the Xbox. It's no comparison. I don't see why you would want to play it on the console.
That's more the point that I was trying to say, that games were built. They were built a certain way for a certain platform, and once you start porting, that initial vision becomes skewed. And if you I just don't see a reason to play Doom 3 on another platform other than the original PC at this point, because that's the way it was designed. All the mods that came for it, everything else after the fact, all the other DLC or whatever that was added to it, specifically for the PC version and to some extent the Mac version, make that game what it is. Like, going in the console version and scrolling through all the text you have to read without a mouse it can be a problem, depending on whatever your settings are for analog sticks and things like that.
It's like games like like when I played Enemy Territory, Quake Wars on PC. It's just that I don't see why you would want to play a game like that on console. It's clearly designed to be more suitable for the PC.
There's Wii U is the only exemption that I see from that. I see MMOs,
the Wii
other titles like that should be on the Wii U because you have a direct input interface that you can point anywhere on a virtual screen.
That's the thing. For me, that was kind of where I did originally see the Wii U going, because to me that's what made sense. Minecraft should have, to me, games like Minecraft, games like Enemy Territory, games like, there's so many different games, even going back to even in some cases on the Wii, there were so many games which could have transitioned, which in my opinion could transition smoothly over to those platforms, simply because it has an interface that can rival the PC. To me, no console with dual analogs, no console with just dual analogs alone can rival the experience of playing a game on PC that was built for PC.
Keyboard and mouse rules all. And with that said, we'll give our sign-offs because we need to go ahead and close this because, we can't have another epic 4-hour extravaganza.
Even though it could easily be. To be honest, with all the stuff there is to talk about,
go long enough. Let this crowd go long enough.
One day we should just try. One day we should just do like an epic podcast where we just go from like 8 hours straight.
It was pretty close. It was pretty long. We'll go ahead and start from my left. So go ahead, M. You go ahead and give your sign off, man.
All right, it was cool being part of this podcast. It's always fun to debate these kind of things. Because I enjoy it because it takes the generic view that people have and really plays full on devil's advocate with it, and I'm hoping that it gets people watching this to actually think about what they're looking into, and that's what I enjoy about it. So I've enjoyed being in this podcast. But as I always say, it's DGC, double M from DGC for Gamers here. Play your games, enjoy your games, and just have fun, man. That's what it's all about. I'm playing games right now, and I'm having a blast. Even though this freaking Reiku won't go in the Pokeball, but yeah, you get the point.
Outstanding. Dr. Feelgood, you still here, or I know he has stepped out for a minute. Andre,
is the doctor in the house?
I guess he's not in the house. Andre, go ahead and give your sign off, man.
I enjoyed being in here. It was a nice discussion, and I'm glad to have had differing viewpoints on stuff, because this is probably the best way to get an overall opinion of things. You get a bunch of different viewpoints and a bunch of different people's opinions together and pick what you want after having been educated very well on what you wanted to get. Otherwise, peace out, people. Just enjoy your games and have fun. That's all you really need to do.
Outstanding. King Grimpachi, give your sign out and let people know what you're doing, what you got going on.
Yeah, it's King Grimpachi. I may have a YouTube video later today, I'm not sure, but I've just been basically finishing up the last couple of weeks of school, doing some exams, and playing GTA 5. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. Anytime, man. Mr. Red Fox, tell two foxes.
Oh, Lord.
I just had to show off the fact that I caught the Pokemon.
That was not me. That was someone else. But
that was
Mr.
perfectly timed, though.
This is Mr. Red Fox here. Getting the trail ready for the big E3 extravaganza on my channel. The first one is next week. It was moved from Saturday to Friday at 8 Eastern Standard Time p.m. So look forward to that. It'll just be us shamelessly speculating about what's going to happen, what might not happen, who's going to die, who's not going to die. We don't know. It's going to be awesome. And every either Friday or Saturday after that throughout May, we'll be speculating about each of the major parts of E3, the big three and third parties. So look forward to that. And that's it.
Outstanding. I guess if Dr. Feelgood's not back, that is ShadowCast 18 in full effect. So since there wasn't much profanity here, I figure I'd go ahead and add that in for the filter. And yeah, as I always say, do you play games to have fun and to impress other people? It's a Shadow Fox, bitch. We out.